There comes a time in one's life where you crave a collectathon style game, akin to Super Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie. There's something so addicting about jumping into one of these games as you prepare yourself for the plethora of stages and fun missions for you to do. For some reason during the 6th generation of consoles, specifically the PS2 and Xbox, this genre seems to have taken a massive decrease in popularity as more mature shooters were hitting the shelf. Even collectathon games such as Jak and Daxter somehow managed to incorporate guns and stealing cars in the sequel. If you're still craving a traditional collectathon during this generation that holds true to the mechanics within those N64 games, then look no further than Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. Ty the Tasmanian Tiger originally released at the back end of 2002, but it's recently received new life through the release of the remastered version, released in 2020 on everything available. This is how I'm playing the game. I have dabbled with the original GameCube release many years ago, but I've never returned to the game for whatever reason. It's actually Ty 2 that I spent the most time with in my childhood, and it's the reason why I returned to this series after so long. You see, I've actually played this series out of order as I bought the remastered version of Ty 2 as a quick nostalgia hit, but then instantly fell in love and wanted to give all the games the time they deserve. So finally, after however long it's been since I played the GameCube original, it's time to give it another look through a remastered lens. Australian developer Krome Studios is responsible for this mascot platformer, and they've splattered an Australian cone of paint all over the atmosphere of this game, which is a welcome change of locale. A small studio with a huge passion for their homeland, pretty much all the stages in this game are based off Australian landscapes of rich deserts, green rainforest, and the Great Barrier Reef, with the characters bringing these to life through their accents and dialect. It's a welcome change of pace from the other mascot platformers, which makes Ty unique. Krome has had moderate success these days, working on ports for series such as Star Wars, and even creating 2 The Legend of Spyro games. Initially though, Ty was one of their first projects, and it's clear that a lot of passion was put in to get things right. Despite Krome Studios being a smaller developer, it still didn't stop them from throwing digs at some of the giants of 3D platformers. The original advertisement for Ty saw him put in Crash, Spyro, which is kind of funny now that they've worked with the series, and even Sonic in the hospital. They quiver in fear as they realise that a new platforming giant is on the block, or at least that's what Krome probably wanted it to come off as. It comes off as cheeky these days, and maybe even laughable for some, but it's a nice nod to the 90s and is rather amusing to watch. Starting the game and the main menu is dripping in style with the groovy electric guitar, making things seem sleeker. The big Ty logo alongside the sketchy drawings of the talismans, and using a freaking boomerang to select your options makes this title screen unlike anything else. Like pretty much every platformer, a pre-rendered cutscene begins, showing Ty playing tag with his pal in a forest. He accidentally falls into a dark cave and encounters a spiritual bunyip elder, who then explains to him what truly happened to the Tasmanian Tigers. Years ago, an all-out brawl between the Tigers and Boss Cass took place over the possession of sacred talismans. Cass used the talismans to open up a portal to trap the Tigers, including Ty's own parents. Ty's father throws a boomerang before getting sucked in, spreading the talismans and keeping them out of Cass's reach. Now, many years later, it's Ty's job to retrieve the talismans and put Cass back in his place. I like how Boss Cass, an ostrich, takes control of a cold-blooded reptile army. It's similar to Donkey Kong Country and King K. Rool. It's clear that Rareware served as a huge inspiration for this game. I have to admit though, I skipped a majority of the cutscenes during my playthrough. Not everything, just a fair few. I found that they went on for too long, and while they were amusing, I just get bored of them. At the end of the day, this game is a simple collectathon. I just want to run around and explore the levels. Another reason why I skipped them is because these cutscenes leak into the levels as characters go on and on, over explaining everything that you need to do. The voice acting is nice, I like all the personalities of the cast, but I just find that I lose interest when I'm being spoken to like a child. The humour is one of the only reasons not to skip these, but even that had trouble at keeping my attention. Still, the characters are nice and I appreciate their designs. Having the main character be a Tasmanian tiger is a nice touch. I imagine that the Ty universe is set when humans were never created, and the process of humanization just occurred with all the animals. It brings up the question of herbivores versus carnivores, but thankfully, we can just forget about that and look at these nice koalas instead. After the pre-rendered cutscene, we're then transported to Rainbow Cliffs, with the cockatoo Maury instructing us to go see the koala Julius. Rainbow Cliffs serves as the main hub area for the game. It's here where you'll unlock new levels, boomerangs, and find other collectibles. It's a neat little area, but not somewhere where you'll be spending a lot of time. It's full of nothingness, no real challenge or reason to stay here. It's definitely no Peach's castle, but it does the job. A lot of your time will be spent collecting everything within the levels, and the tutorial stage 2 up teaches us the basics of everything we need to know. Julius needs Thunder Eggs to power his talisman finding machine, conveniently giving us a primary collectible to seek and find throughout the stages. Before moving on to more of the game, I want to further explain what you're actually doing here besides collecting Thunder Eggs. Tai features missions in every stage for a grand total of 8 things for you to do. 4 of them you'll always know what to expect. There's a main mission of the stage, you have to collect all the opals, imagine these like music notes from Banjo and Kazooie, and free all the bilbies, this game's Jinjo equivalent, and complete a race to the end of the stage. The other 4 missions are all unique. There's also golden cogs to find, which are usually placed after a tricky platforming sequence, or sometimes hidden in plain sight. You should go out of your way to try and collect all of these, because you unlock more boomerangs from Julius this way, and some of them can be pretty sweet. There's also hidden crates scattered about the level, which gives you a picture frame to unlock concept art under the extras in the main menu, which is a nice touch. The first stage introduces all of this to you and is fairly linear. It gets you used to Ty's movement and moveset he comes equipped with. The boomerang is probably the first thing I should talk about. It's so cool. Having a singular rang for a very brief period is so depressing. It's so slow that it's barely worth using. It makes that feeling of getting the second one even better though, and throwing the boomerangs in unison is a witty way of defeating enemies. I enjoy Ty's main form of weaponry a lot, to be honest. It's something unique that I haven't seen before. Throwing the boomerangs feels good, and when you get the multi-rang later on, I always sort of enter a trance when I throw a bunch of them at once. Ty uses them to cling onto ledges and glide in the air, and you can even use them in first person to hit buttons. The amount of utility these guys get is impressive, and Ty himself is rather athletic too. Coming equipped with his signature biting attack, Ty can take big chomps out of enemies to defeat them. Some enemies are 2-part fights, with them requiring a bite to take down the defenses first, and then a follow up with the trusty boomerang. It's the little things, but it adds an extra layer onto an otherwise simple fighting system. The bite is also used as a sort of homing attack for Ty, as there's moments in which he'll bite onto various eggs containing spy cameras. The sections are brief, but more often than not lead to secret areas with golden cogs or thunder eggs, so it's a nice change of pace. Ty's double-mouthed face is a bit jarring though, but maybe that's how he gets the biting effect to sound so good. The first stage is fairly linear. It's the second stage which truly opened up the game to me. Walk in the Park as the stage is known. It's set in a rainforest. Poor Sheza's car is broken down and it's our job to save her. The atmosphere here is nice. The rainy rainforest is relaxing alongside what I'm pretty sure is a jaw harp on the soundtrack. It makes everything bouncy and enjoyable and makes traversing up the mountainous landscape more exciting. The twangy sounds are all found throughout the game and gives Ty an iconic soundtrack that differs a lot from other platformers. After making it to the top, we have to make our way downwards using a stream of water. The controls here are tight. One little nudge left or right sends Ty flying in that direction. It's nothing too troubling, but it can be a bit stressful trying to get all the opals on your path. The idea of Ty going down a stream of water is repeated later across multiple levels, so it makes sense to introduce this mechanic while you're within a rainforest of all things. It's here that we meet Ranger Ken, who informs us of the situation with some cave bats. It's here where Ty opens up to the player. Do you want to go out your way and help Ken with the bats, or do you want to continue onwards towards Sheza? A lot of the game design within Ty is like this. Unlike something like Banjo-Kazooie, a game which features a very scattered design of collectibles and objectives, Ty the Tasmanian Tiger presents a linear path to the primary objective that the game wants you to focus on, and it does this through the layout of opals showing you where to go. The game then teases you with the thought of the other objectives in the stages that you could be doing as well. It's like the game shows you the basics of each stage before opening it up, and it works well. While I decided to handle the bat situation quickly this time, I didn't have to and could have just continued on with my journey towards Sheza. For some stages though, this design can be a hindrance. It feels like for quite a lot of the bigger stages, they feature vast amounts of empty space, and once you're done with the main path and other objectives, the stages can become an annoyance trying to track down the last opal or things that you might be missing. Helping out Sheza isn't a big deal though. She's filling up her water bottle while some blue-tongued lizards want her dead, for whatever reason. Just bonk them a few times with some nearby boulders to be rewarded with a thunder egg. Off to the Great Barrier Reef for the next stage, with the Platypus Rex teaching us the basics of swimming. It's a gigantic level with lots of water, which can be fun to swim around in, but easy to get lost through its maze-like design. Thankfully, the map on the pause screen is pretty accurate and is a great way to ensure that you never get lost. This may be annoying for some people, having to pause and look at the map, but it never got in the way of my enjoyment for the game. Something that did get in the way of my enjoyment is how big this stage is, and it's like this in all of the water and snowy themed stages. It's too easy to miss opals. All the underwater sections look the same, except an area involving some sharks, and it can be so boring staring at the same things over and over again. Swimming is fun for what it is, but maybe this stage would benefit from the amount you have to swim being reduced. Ty gets a neat set of aquarangs to use underwater too, and it's fun to whack the eels and other sea creatures with them. About halfway through the stage, I remembered that you can change Ty's outfit in this game, and I thought it would be fitting to wear a wetsuit. A particularly neat addition that separates the remaster from the original is Ty's alternative outfits for you to equip, with none of them requiring extra work for you to unlock. They're nice little bonuses that give off their own visual flair. The first boss is nothing special, just make sure he runs into a wall a couple of times to take him down. After this though, Julius crafts us a flamerang to use to access the next set of 3 stages, with the first one being Bridge on the River Ty. This particular stage is one of my favourites. I really like how the first part of the stage is more linear, and then it opens up into a big area once reaching the green frog Dennis. Dennis tasks Ty with the odd job of lighting the way home for him because he's scared of the dark, and will receive a thunder egg as a reward. Of course we'll do this. The mission takes full advantage of the size of the stage, and it's nice to just run around and become briefly acquainted with the stage before doing a deep dive into exploration later. The lighting here is cozy. I appreciate the lighting effect that the flamerang gives off. All of the elemental ranks do this actually, as you unlock the frosty ranks and the zappy ranks later. And now that I think about it, this game has a weird theme regarding the 4 elements. Maybe they wanted it to be a bigger thing but then stripped it back for the final release, but the elemental motif is never really pushed in your face, it's just kind of there. Anyway, Bridge on the River Ty is a good stage, but it's held back by how much you have to go on the bridges and jump off to reach areas below. It's a good handful of times that I had to do this as well, so it can be annoying going back to the beginning of the bridge over and over again just to jump off. The music is so good here though that I can't really complain too much. It gives me a nice excuse to keep listening to it. It's nice and chill, fitting the somber atmosphere. It might be one of my favourite stages in the game, and it also features a mid-stage boss fight for a thunder egg, so the diversity in what you'll have to do here is unparalleled. Snow Worries is a gigantic snow-themed stage caked with lots of ice physics. I think this stage is pretty decent despite having vast amounts of space with nothing in it. It's fun though, looking in every nook and cranny for the koalas for Sheila, as well as trying to hunt down every opal and golden cog. The underwater section in the middle of the ice spruces things up as well, before you head up some treacherous wooden areas featuring buzzsaws trying to cut Ty in half. This particular mission is kind of annoying. You have to make your way through 3 different obstacle courses on these wooden bridges, but it's so deflating having to go all the way back down to the bottom of the mountain to go through another path. It's not the worst thing ever, and the paths are different enough to just about get away with the repetition. The bass line here within the stage theme is amazing. The whole song sounds like a secret agent undercover mission, like it could perfectly fit within Club Penguin, and I mean that as a compliment. It's the bass player for me though that elevates the song to the next level. It's so groovy. Outback Safari is the next stage, one which you'll have to ride the first boss around a barren landscape full of rocks. Can I just start by pointing out how cool it is that the boss becomes a rideable ally? It's a one-of-a-kind type of stage, and I wouldn't be surprised if it served as the inspiration for Ty 2's open world segments, or at least pushed the developers to expand upon the idea. This stage is enjoyable and opens with Sheza tasking us to retrieve some pesky emus roaming the streets. Ty gets a special lasso rank to reel the birds in, making me feel like a cowboy roaming the Wild West, which is reinforced through the music. It seriously feels like we're in Texas or something, but the game still manages to keep its Australian charm. Things to do include putting out fires for Ranger Ken, protecting Shezza from frills, and racing against her in the vast outback. It's here where my appreciation for the racing music began. The guitar on this track is really good. It's such a simple riff that evolves and becomes dirtier through distortion. Depending on what type of level you're on, the race music will be different, which is a nice addition. It's fun to do the races on each stage and wonder what type of song you'll be rewarded with. The track for the snowy stages is an adrenaline pumping banger, and the race music for the water levels does a perfect job at making me want to pick up a surfboard. I don't know if the music within this game is rated as highly as it deserves, but honestly, it's one of my favourite parts about this game. It's so electrifying and different from anything else. The next boss is pretty stinky. I was confused on what to do initially, but a quick Google search put me on my way. You have to bait out a shark who's under Boss Cass's control by putting food in the water for it and then sneakily swimming down to hit an oxygen tank, I think, that then travels to the surface of the water for it to explode within the shark's mouth. It's a bit repetitive, but I appreciate the sentiment of trying to come up with a boss involving Ty's water mechanics. After getting the Blizzarangs from Julius, the last 3 stages of the game await. Lyre Lyre Pants on Fire is the first one up, involving Lenny the lyrebird, a bird who lies constantly and tells you the wrong way to go, and also sneakily guides Ty to a boss fight, which I'll get into in a sec. The stage itself is reminiscent of Walk in the Park, but that doesn't mean it's not enjoyable. It's fairly linear and can be beaten quickly. I swear I collected everything in this stage after roughly 35 to 40 minutes. It's a pretty standard stage. I guess they expected the lyrebird and the boss fight to hold this stage up. Ty sees himself facing off against his brother Sly, who is working for Boss Cass. The two don't know they are brothers yet, but because I've sneakily played the second game first, I've had this spoiled for me. Oops. Anyway, the fight just consists of you both throwing boomerangs at each other, so it's nothing to write home about. I actually accidentally died during this fight. Yeah, accidentally, because I was trying to bite Sly for some reason, and when I returned, he badmouthed me and called me a pea-brain, which is a nice attention to detail. Beyond the Black Stump is an interesting level. There's bushfires at the bottom of the stage and a snowy mountainous area with a cable car at the top. I like the dichotomy here. It gives the stage 2 distinct parts. The blazing fire has trapped Sheila's students, which is a pretty terrifying thought. No problem though, as Ty quickly saves the day. The stage makes good use of the 2 elemental ranks that we have, as a lot of the areas on the bottom half of the stage require the use of the Blizzarang to clear paths and put out fires. Taking a quick trip up the mountain though, and the level is entirely different, with giant areas of nothing but snow and ice awaiting you. It's a fun little stage, but I can't help but wish that the bottom half was its own thing, mainly due to the repetition of snow from the top segment. It is different enough from Snow Worries to not feel repetitive, but a nice change of locale would have been good so we could get exposed to more Australian wildlife and nature. It doesn't help that we are finding Sheila's students again, but Ranger Ken's objectives of defeating Frills makes up for the repetition of Sheila's mission. Rex Marks the Spot is the last stage for us to take a look at, and it might be the worst stage in the game. I don't think that it's awful, or anything that will make you want to pull your hair out. Unfortunately for Rex Marks the Spot, it's just too big with not much to do besides swim around. The stage opens up with Platypus L telling us about some treasure map that she downloaded off the internet, and it's a cool premise, but the whole thing just boils down to a sort of fetch quest mission in which you have to keep going from one place to the next, and with a stage this big, that's something you don't want to be doing. There's a little segment within a volcano, and it's one of the only times that you'll be platforming within the level, so make the most out of it while you can. Pray that you don't miss any opals on this stage, and that the counter doesn't read the dreaded 299 when you think you're finished, because good luck in finding that one that you need amongst this vast empty space. The third boss fight awaits us now, and at first I didn't understand what to do. It uses the elemental ranks we've acquired, and possibly purposefully is a 3-part fight. It's the third boss fight with 3 different phases, and we get the third elemental rang after this fight too, the Zappy rang. I enjoyed this fight. It might be the best one in the game actually due to it being so diverse. Fluffy's banter with Ty is comical too. I know that we'll be seeing her in the future. After retrieving the third talisman, the third elemental rang is ours and we can access the final area in the game and work towards the final boss. There have been cutscenes showing what Boss Cass has been up to during this time, and I love how serious he is. His zany personality is perfect for an ostrich. Mixed with the serious animation though, and it presents him as a goofball that needs to be taken down for the good of the Tasmanian Tigers. Cass's pass is one long, linear level that throws a gauntlet of enemies your way. It's the penultimate test before you make your way into Cass's lair. It's a fairly decent stage, easily being beaten within a few minutes. However, it builds up the anticipation of the final fight. It's about time that we struck Cass down for good. Not before a boss fight involving a bat though. The bat made me laugh quite a bit as I reflected on the stark difference between hair design and Rouge the Bat. I always manage to cram in Sonic somehow in these videos. She's kidnapped Sheza, who is holding the last talisman, and is using her as a hostage to take down Ty. Simply steam her a few times amongst the crowd of enemies and head towards the actual final boss of Boss Cass. There's a funny Matrix moment between Ty and Sly in which Ty knocks him off the bridge and then saves Sly's life in a couple of seconds. Sly claims, "You'll regret this," and we find out in a few moments that his threat falls on deaf ears. The final boss is a real letdown though. It's more like a mini stage rather than a fight, as you use the elemental ranks to destroy the giant robot Cass is piloting. I was expecting a fight, but this isn't the worst thing ever. It simply just feels like another stage. Sly helps us out halfway through the fight and gives us his rang, which we somehow managed to throw hard enough that it travels for ages to strike Cass inside the machine. I thought this part kind of ruined the fight, to be honest. It's a neat idea, but I felt like the controls were far too sensitive and it was easy to become confused because everything looks the same. Oh well, with Cass taken care of, there's nothing left to do other than free the Tasmanian Tigers. Ty reunites with his parents, and the spiritual Bunyip Elder gives us a nudge to collect 100% completion and achieve the true ending. I will go back to Ty and fully complete the game, which is the biggest compliment I could give it. I finished the game on 85% completion with nearly 7 hours played, so it shouldn't take me too long to mop up for full completion. Right now though, I'm going to move on to Ty 2, the true game of my childhood. The original Ty the Tasmanian Tiger is a stellar platformer, despite some reused ideas and disappointing boss fights. It does a lot of things right and is worth a playthrough for any platformer fan. The game never gets too complicated and is the perfect homage to collectathon platform games that it's obviously inspired from. Chrome Studios would then go on to evolve the image of Ty, incorporating different mechanics and giving the Ty brand its own identity to separate it from those games that are similar, starting immediately with the sequel, Ty the Tasmanian Tiger 2 Bush Rescue. Thanks so much for watching guys, make sure to like the video if you enjoyed and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.